May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Please be seated. It's great to see so many familiar and new faces here tonight. Thank you all for coming to our Jefferson Airplane Mass. If you are expecting me to preach the gospel of Jefferson Airplane, you will be surprised to find that I am not. I will be speaking about the scriptures this evening. As we finish the musical selections for the night, though, I do encourage you to sing them very loudly and excitedly and to read the lyrics as you do and look for signs of God's love and hope and homecoming, because you will find them. Especially the last song, my favorite, White Rabbit, with its hookah-smoking caterpillar, which is probably my favorite character in Alice in Wonderland. When I was in college, our library had a rare collections section, and in that we had a very old copy of Alice in Wonderland with paintings by Roald Dahl, and you had to wear gloves to touch it and get special permission to go into the sealed room. So I do love Alice in Wonderland, and I do love Jefferson Airplane because of that song. So when I say that I'm going to focus on the scriptures, it is for very good reason that I am ignoring what is one of my favorite bands. And it's no surprise why I feel the need to focus on the Bible tonight, because we are approaching a day of reckoning on November 8th. Many of us are wringing our hands and worrying whether or not this is the end of days that Paul told us was coming. Is the lawless one of our candidates this season? The words of the prophet and St. Paul and Jesus have more to offer us this night than the wonderfully catchy lyrics of Jefferson Airplane. So with that, let us attend to the words that God has given us this day. The prophet Haggai says, "Build the house of the Lord, the temple. It will be glorious. Things will be shaky. It will be scary. But keep your head down and keep working. God is with you, and God will honor your labor with prosperity." And then Paul, in his letter to the Thessalonians, says, "The end is not here. Everyone is going to tell you that it is. Things are getting shaky. There will be lawless rebellion. But as the faithful people, you must take courage and continue good work and preaching the word." And then Jesus says in our Gospel of Luke this evening, of course there's a resurrection. It will be wonderful, a new world where we will be like angels. Look at your patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They are alive in God, and you too will be alive in God. So let me start by setting the scene. Our prophet Haggai is talking to the people of Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar II has destroyed the temple in 586, and we pick up the story nearly 70 years later. The Israelites have been liberated from captivity by the Persian king Cyrus and sent back to their homeland. The crown has changed hands a few times, and now Cyrus's grandson Darius is on the throne and encourages the Israelites to finish rebuilding their capital city and their temple. The center of Jewish life had been destroyed. It had a dramatic effect on the morale of the Israelites. So imagine, by way of example, if something happened to St. Mark's, if that big earthquake finally hit, or an arson attacked, and we lost this church. How would we feel? People lose their churches all of the time. A church was burned down in the South not 4 days ago now. Still happens. So they look at the ruins of their capital city, and they are left with a task that is too great for them. They are but a small remnant of Israel's former glory. Is it even possible for them to rebuild something as glorious as Solomon's temple? It would take them another 6 years from this reading for them to finish it. And that despondency is not an attitude that is foreign to us. Every new Pew poll that we read shows that religious commitment and attendance is dropping across the United States. The biggest losers in those categories are mainline Protestants like us. Many of you in the audience tonight probably remember a day when attendance at St. Mark's was much greater than it is now. You may remember a day when we just had to open the doors and people would flood in, and we didn't have to offer fancy ministries or do excellent graphic design to post on Facebook to try to encourage people to come. The church today is not the force in culture in our country that it was 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or even 20. Dioceses across the country are selling property and cutting staff. People are scared. So we look back to older days and we have a feeling of nostalgia. We're fond for what we remember being a better time, a more glorious time. And we are unsure of what the future will hold. Some would say that the crumbling of the church is a sign of those end times that Paul is talking about, that it's a result of our moral failings as Christians and as the church. I'll tell you that some people say that especially about Episcopalians. I saw someone say as much on Facebook today. Every generation, every single one of them has huge numbers of people throughout all time that have believed that they are the last generation before the end of the world. It is a constant human impulse to see the world as hopeless and on the edge of annihilation. Paul wrestled with this from the very beginning of the church. But take heart, he says. The day of the Lord is not yet here. There will be lawless rebellion. It happens, but do not be anxious for a sign. Now, as much as I would like to tell you with certainty that the time is not yet come, I cannot. I do not know. None of us know. Even Jesus admitted to not knowing the day or the hour. So, all of the people that worry that the election is going to be the end of the world as we know it may be right, but probably not. We certainly do see lawlessness in the world, and we see rebellion. We see people exchanging their hope in God's Messiah for hope in political parties and candidates. But we do not know. Even for Paul, warning us about the lawless ones has to recognize that lawless ones have come and have gone time and time again. Rebellions have risen and they have been put down. They take the form of kings and dictators. Some take the form of celebrities and CEOs and presidents. The temple is destroyed, and then it is rebuilt, but then it is destroyed again. And so it goes. The faithful come, but we always return to dust. So Paul's warning is a warning for every age. It is a warning for us now. We cannot say with any certainty that our turmoil is the sign of the end, but neither can we say that it is not. Either way, we must continue on as the remnant people. The impulse to see ourselves as the last generation before the second coming should not be used as an attempt to get a free pass out of the hard work of preaching the gospel and doing good work. No matter how much the world shakes, no matter the storms that batter our coasts, no matter the people that stir up hate and antagonism, we have work to do. We have a church to build. We have a word to preach. We have good works that are our responsibility. And that work is a holy one, a holy responsibility. And God's work is daunting. We are no longer tasked with building the temple, but we do have a responsibility to maintain the church and continue her work. The church, do not forget, is our people. The word that we translate church from the New Testament is ecclesia. It is Greek, and it means an assembly of people. It does not mean a building. So this new temple of God, according to Paul in Corinthians, is the community of people who gather in Jesus' name. Our building is beautiful. Our art is magnificent. Our incense smell very, very nice. But we, the people, the Christians of this church and every church in town, are the true splendor of God. We are the fruits of Jesus' ministry, and we are still alive, and we have work to do. But what work is it? That is a bigger question than I can answer by myself. I will need your help to answer it. So surely we're going to worship God by taking care of this building. We are going to volunteer and show up on Sundays to serve coffee and swing thuribles. We're going to continue to sponsor music and theater. We will join committees and guilds to keep the trains running on time. But are we building the temple that is the people? Are we continuing on in courage in the ministry of the word and good works? Or are we giving into hopelessness? Are we putting our faith in something other than God? You can have strong opinions about the elections and the ballot measures, I know that I do, but your vote is not your ministry. Your work is not over on November 9th. We must stick to the word of Paul. Continue in good work. Continue preaching the word. We must stick to the promise God makes through the prophet Haggai. Work, for I am with you. The latter glory will be greater than the former. With that comfort, we can continue the ministry of this parish. So when you leave tonight, take a look at the icons at the back of the church. Gregory the Illuminator and Mary Magdalene stand with God and with Abraham, with Isaac and Jacob. The end times did not come in their day, and it did not come a decade ago when street preachers said the end was nigh, and it is likely not going to come tomorrow. We are still alive, and we can turn to their witness, keep our head down, and keep working. We must not delude ourselves, however, that our work will be enough. The glory of the Lord will come when God brings it, but that does not give us an excuse to sit on our hands and wait. The work that we do will not be enough, but it is not nothing. Lawless ones will tell us that they alone can save us. False teachers will try to deceive us. Troublemakers will ridicule our faith and question our odd religious habits and call us quaint and deluded and old-fashioned. This work ahead of us will tempt us to despondency and nihilism. But just as the prophet Haggai promised, God is with us. As we work, the Lord will stand beside us and go before us and honor the labor of our hands and bring glory and prosperity to his church. We may not see it. The church in Thessalonica was the first fruit, not the last. Chances are good that we are not the final harvest either. But God is the God of the living. We may die before we see greater glory. And even if we should die before Jesus comes again, we have work to do in this church. We must maintain it as the base of operations for our ministering and preaching to Glendale. We can work knowing that we will someday stand with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Gregory and Mary, and we will stand with Jesus alive in all of God's splendor in a resurrected world. Amen.